Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, lovely one. I'm going to talk to you today about what I would do if I was starting a business, a baby business, from scratch right now in 2026. Now, please hear me when I say these things that I list are not things that I necessarily did when I did start. I'm looking with the knowledge that I have now, having trained hundreds of people to become hypnobirthing teachers, having seen people have success, having mentored people, having learned a lot about business. Okay. So what I would do these days would be very different to what I actually did when I started out. I mean, if you're a listener to this podcast, you'll probably know that there's lots of things that I do regret when I look back. I regret being so slow to start. I regret overcomplicating things. I regret being scared of being seen for so long. So actually, if I was starting right now, I'd do things very different. Also, we are in a different time. When I started my business 10 years ago, back in 2016. Well, actually, it was 2015. Who am I talking about? It was a different world. We had social media, but it was slightly different. We didn't have algorithms, that we've got more technology at our fingertips to make things look more professional these days. So yeah, there's definitely things that I would do very differently. Now, if you are listening to this and you have already started your business, I really hope you still gain some valuable insights from this episode, because actually you might hear me talking about things that even though you're 2 years in, you're still not doing, and this might be the nudge that you need. So let's get on with it then. So if I was starting my business in 2026, so if I was starting a hypnobirthing business, the first thing is I would start talking about my business as soon as I decided to train to be a hypnobirthing teacher. So pretty much as soon as I started my training, I would be talking about what I was doing. And I wouldn't wait until I had some shiny website to do that. I would talk about it anywhere I could. So if I think about my life now, I'd talk about it on the school run. I'd talk about it to people that I was randomly chatting to. I would talk about it on my Facebook profile. I would share what I'm doing and why. I would lean into that passion. I wouldn't worry about, teaching them 8 facts about anything. I would lean into why I'm doing this, why I believe in it so much, why I know it makes a difference. I'd also lean into the storytelling side of things. You know, one thing I have definitely learned over the last decade is that stories matter. And if you haven't listened to my episode where I talk about inspiration over information, that's a really good one to listen to, where I'm talking about how actually, you know, inspiring people, sharing stories rather than just fact is the way to connect with people and help them actually decide to do something. So I would be telling my own story about what led me to be passionate about hypnobirthing. I would share feelings that I had in pregnancy and how hypnobirthing helped with that. I would be telling so many stories that help people grasp the idea of why hypnobirthing matters and who it can benefit. Okay, so that's the first thing that I would do. Second thing, I would be very careful about not being too reliant on incredible platforms like Canva. I see it a lot. I do. I see so many new hypnobirthing teachers almost hide behind fancy graphics on Canva. Like, it's easier than ever to get lovely graphics available for free or next to nothing. We didn't have that back in my day, you know, spoken like a real elderly person. And actually, that's a really good thing. I see that so many people get so fixated on Canva that actually they stop showing the person behind the business. They spend too much time faffing, you know, positioning graphics, finding the right image, when none of that actually moves the needle. So yeah, the second thing I would do would be, I would be very limited with how much time I spend on platforms like Canva, and instead focus on real photos, video, and simple things that catch attention without overcomplicating it. And that links me perfectly on to the third thing that I would do. I would get some professional photos, and ideally as well, some B-roll. What is B-roll? Well, B-roll is basically like video, like background video basically. So it might be, you know, a little clip of me working on my laptop, a little clip of me working with a client. It might be a little clip of me, you know, walking down the street with my daughter. You know, these things that can then be used to put text on the top for reels. And I would get these photos and this can't get my words out, and this B-roll, so that I've almost got this little collection, and it makes posting, it makes getting visible so much easier. I'm not having to make the things in the moment. I'm not having to scroll through my phone for a decent picture of me. I've got it. And I know what you might be thinking, Abby, if you were starting a business, would you really want to spend the money on having professional photos? Well, actually, I think it's a good use of your money. I definitely have the photos over having a logo made. The logo, graphics, all that can come later. But actually, some photos that really show you as a hypnobirthing teacher, you know, really show your clients who you are, the friendly, personable, you know, person that you are going to be so much more powerful than a logo. Okay. And again, it just makes the most of your precious time because you're not having to faff about getting these things in the moment. And you know what I'd probably do if I was starting out? Because I'd be on a budget, I would probably approach people who do things like maternity photos, newborn photos, and approach them from a place of, you know, do you ever do like photos for business people? I'm setting up a hypnobirthing business. I'd love to be able to tag you in content. I'm looking for a photographer, you know, and they might discount the prices. They might even give you it for free. But I would definitely get that early on. And in terms of the B-roll, as in the video footage, when I say I'd get that, you could get someone to do it for you, but it's really easy to spend a couple of hours just getting it yourself, putting it in a folder in your phone, and it's there to be used. Okay, so probably if I was starting out, I probably wouldn't pay someone to do that. I'd just spend the time getting it myself. So it's there. Again, I'm not having to do these things in the moment. Okay. Next thing that I would do is I would focus on making connections in my community with other businesses. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm an absolute networking phobic kind of gal. I hate networking. Nothing scares me more than the thought of going to networking. And again, I've got another episode on this. So if you are also a networking phobe, check that episode out, because there's definitely other things that you could do. So I'm not saying I would focus on attending the local networking event. I wouldn't. It's just not me. I'm not saying you don't do that, but for me, nothing would scare me more. So what I would do, what would feel comfortable for me is with my business account. So maybe I've set up a business Instagram, that shows that I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, shows who I am. I would start engaging meaningfully with other businesses in my local area. And immediately you might think, oh, she totally means pregnancy-related ones. Well, yeah, I do. But also other businesses too. There might be a really nice local cafe in my area that I know kind of attracts women of childbearing age. There might be a really popular beauty therapist that again works with women of childbearing age. I would use my business account to comment on their stuff. Not in a grabby way of hey, I'm a new hypnobirthing teacher in the area. Would you like to give out my flyers? Definitely not. In more of a kind of, oh, wow, say they've put a picture up of someone's lovely nails. Oh, wow, love red. I might get red for my next appointment. You just commenting meaningfully. All businesses like that. They're all going to appreciate that kind of interaction because it's great for their content. And naturally, some of them may look at your profile, what you're about. You are getting into their awareness. You're going to be on their radar. They're going to might talk about you to other people. So that's how I would do that when I was starting out. It would feel comfortable for me, and it would be a way of just getting that awareness out there with other businesses. So I would think about, beauty therapists. I'd think about local cafes. I'd think about massage therapists, especially if they work with expectant parents. I'd think about the local chiropractor. I'd think about, maybe services that work with people who've got toddlers, because those toddler mums might be thinking of baby number 2, baby number 3, and so on. So I would be thinking about those businesses. And like I said, I would be commenting meaningfully, not with almost a agenda for them to do something for me. I would just be cheering their business on. I would just be commenting, making myself visible in their comments, because who knows where that might go. Next, I would not overcomplicate thinking about whether I need a niche. So if you've heard people talk about niche, what they're talking about is you find an area of your industry that's not very well explored. So maybe thinking, okay, I'm a hypnobirthing teacher. I had a home birth. I'm going to specialise in hypnobirthing for home births. Okay. Or it might be thinking, okay, I'm passionate about people using hypnobirthing for a cesarean. I'm going to niche down to that. Now, I absolutely think that can be a fantastic idea. I do. I think there's real benefits of niching, especially if you are wanting to attract an audience, potentially globally. It's going to make you stand out. However, if I was starting a brand new hypnobirthing business in 2026, I wouldn't start thinking about niching, because I'm going to overcomplicate it. I'm going to potentially mean that I have to talk more about those niche topics than just more generally. So if I was starting out, I definitely wouldn't start with a niche. I would simply be talking about my hypnobirthing courses. Who they're for. I would definitely have an ideal client in mind, as in I'd think about who's going to benefit most from my courses. Well, maybe it's someone who's fearful of childbirth. Maybe it's someone who, is the type of person that's always done well at everything in life and is now like, oh my gosh, this is the one thing that I don't have control of. Maybe they're the type of person that likes the finer things in life. I wouldn't directly say that, but I would be thinking, what might they want me to talk about? So I've got this idea in my head of who I am speaking to when I create content, okay? But I wouldn't niche down, and I would allow that to almost like organically come if I wanted that. So it's really different deciding to niche after a year when you've worked with clients and actually you think, gosh, like those clients that I work with that are planning a home birth, they really get the most out of my courses. I'm going to niche down to them. That's really different deciding that like later down the road, and I'm not saying we ever have to have a niche at all. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have a niche. What I'm saying is, if I was starting my business, I wouldn't overthink needing a niche. I'd just blooming get started. And maybe you're seeing like a common theme throughout this episode that actually the key thing is I won't overcomplicate anything, because the more we overcomplicate things, the more we feel like we have to choose the right path, the right thing, the right niche, the right branding. We're actually just postponing. We're actually just delaying getting out there, which isn't good for anyone, your potential clients, and it's certainly not good for you. So yeah, I wouldn't overthink needing a niche. I would just get going, and I would remember and remind myself that actually the unique thing about my particular hypnobirthing business is me, No other hypnobirthing business has me. I'm the one that teaches the courses. I'm the one that promotes the courses. And actually, they're going to get a different flavour just because I'm different to the other hypnobirthing teacher, And that will also remind me that actually when I show up and be visible, I'm allowing people to get a taste of that so they can decide if I'm the right flavour for them ultimately, The final thing I would do if I was starting a business in 2026 is I would think about community. What do I mean by that? Well, I would think about actually cultivating this almost like group of people that have used your services and can connect with one another. And I would start that right from the start, because I know that when we are talking about businesses in the baby industry, so many expectant parents are looking for that. They're looking for their village. They are looking for connection. They are looking for friends. So I would start by perhaps having, a little get together for parents that are interested or using hypnobirthing to create that community, to create that connection. Because it's that kind of thing that really stands out in 2026. So I would think of those ways I could do that. It might be a meetup, or it might actually start with a WhatsApp group. A way to connect, a way to get people together and feel that they are part of something, That matters, and that can absolutely have a ripple effect for the longevity and the life of your business. So those are my things that I would do if I was starting a business in 2026. I'd get going right away. As soon as I trained, I'd be talking about what I'd be doing. Even before I had any, courses for people to book, I'd be talking about it coming soon. I'd make sure there was a trailer before the real event, yeah? A trailer before the movie. I wouldn't overcomplicate things by getting too wrapped up in fancy graphics and spending hours on things like Canva. I would show more pictures of me. I'd show more videos of me. I would remember that I am my business. I am the person that they are booking. So I would show more of that. Okay. I would not overcomplicate feeling like I needed a niche, and I would gently connect with other businesses simply by doing what feels comfortable to me, which is connecting with them via social media. So I really hope that has been useful. And remember, if you are thinking about becoming a hypnobirthing teacher, it's a great time to enroll with Love Your Birth. We have got a special offer running right now, so do come over and have a chat, and I can tell you about that. Take care, and as always, keep on changing lives. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.